What I'm excited about is, and some of the stuff that we're working on internally, is how do we go to the next level of really using things like sort of topic modeling or other types of machine learning approaches to have a deeper understanding of what the content is about, and then relate it to things like skills and titles or roles, and then to the individual who can maybe tell us more about themselves.
As work from home arrangements continue to change the face of work, automation is making some jobs obsolete or machine run. So how can today's workers strengthen their skill sets in order to get the jobs they want? Plus, how can machine learning be implemented to improve education itself? Go1 has the answers and a platform full of courses on both hard and soft skills. The CTO of this innovative company, Barnaby Dorfman, is here to share Go1's approach to e-learning. IT Visionaries is brought to you by Salesforce Platform. If you love the thought leadership on this podcast, Salesforce has even more meaty IT thoughts to chew on. Take your company to the next level with in-depth research and trends right in your inbox. Subscribe to a newsletter tailored to your role at salesforce.com/newsletter. Welcome everyone to another episode of IT Visionaries. And today we have a special guest. His name is Barnaby Dorfman, and he is the CTO of a company called Go1. And that is Go with the number one. Barnaby, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
All right. Right out the gate, we ask this of all of our guests. But for those who don't know what Go1 is, can you tell us what it is and what does Go1 do?
Sure. Yeah. So Go1 is a library of e-learning for employees. We've amassed probably the largest library of its kind online, and we make that available to employers to help their employees be more effective and successful in their work.
And when you say largest library of e-learning content, like what kind of content? Are we talking about like hard skills, soft skills, both? Give us an idea what kind of skills are loaded to this platform.
Yeah, it's really across the board. I've been with the company for a little over a year, and when I first learned about it, my head, because I've been in web development software for many years, I immediately went to the kinds of things that I've had to do and used in the past, like cybersecurity training or document retention policies. But it really spans kind of anything that an employee might want to learn. I like to think of it in kind of three categories. The first, and we often call this compliance. So it's the first things I just talked about: fire safety training, anti-corruption training, those kinds of things. And these are the things that you must complete if you're going to be employed at whatever company you work at. But it's not specific to technology or IT. I should mention, we were founded in Australia. We're currently a global company, and our aspirations really are our mission is to unlock positive potential through learning. And we want to be able to do that through love of learning. And we want to be able to do that at scale, up to a billion learners. And so it's really across all geographies, but also all industries, not just focused on technology. We kind of, I think in the tech world, sometimes kind of build this bubble around ourselves, but it's really workers. In Australia, we have a lot of fire and safety as workers, as an example, EMTs. But back to kind of the types, three layers. That compliance are the things you must do. The second level I like to think of as things that make you more effective at your job. So that could be like during the pandemic, one of the things that we've seen grow is skills in things like Excel. Excel is one of our most popular courses, and I kind of like to think of it as it used to be you could kind of turn to the person in the cubicle next to you and say, "Hey, how did pivot tables work again? I forgot." But you can't really do that now, and so we're a resource for that kind of learning. But it also, and you asked if it's hard skills, soft skills. It's also the soft skills around things like improving your writing or communication, or how to be a better customer support representative. And then kind of the tip of this, I think of it as sort of a pyramid. The tip of it, I would say, is things to help you be more engaged and frankly happier and more fulfilled in work and I think also life. So we also have meditation and mindfulness at work courses. We have anxiety, stress management. We have things that people can invest their time in to frankly be happier.
So I am familiar with the space. My actual first technical job was in e-learning a while ago, and I'm going to date myself, but that was almost 20 years ago now that I look back on it. It was 2000. It was not quite 20, but it was 2006. 2006 is when I started in that career. The interesting thing about it then was that companies were definitely trying to make it more personal. You know what I mean? Like a big company, if they were going to launch an e-learning module, it would be about them, be very specific. They would load it to a learning management system. That learning management system would get deployed through some HRIS tool, like maybe a PeopleSoft, or nowadays, PeopleSoft work. There's a lot of them now.
Yep. Yep.
And it would know then like, hey, Barnaby needs courses A through Z, Albert needs 1 through 10, whatever the numbers were. And it would, of course, track completions and stuff. But the creation of them was quite personal. Is that still the case? Like, are these like more templated courses that make it easier for people to use or add their their business practices into that course? Or is it still the creation of it similar to what I described back in 2006, where a company would create their own, and then I guess Go1 becomes the LMS that integrates with an HRIS that says, hey, this person's completed the course.
Yeah, so we're definitely not an LMS. We support everything you just described, and what I would say
Right.
is so we have brought together content from hundreds of different content providers. So people that you would know kind of well to like kind of I don't know, like I'm just thinking here in the U.S. because again we're global, but
No problem.
Blinkist
We can.
or Edcast or a variety of different companies through to kind of a long tail, like I said, of hundreds of different content providers. Creative Live has a lot of content on the site. Uh, and so that's in the library that we have essentially aggregated and brought together. So there's a massive amount of content available. And then we also allow our customers to upload the content they may create using an authoring tool, or they may have had a vendor produce custom for them. And then also within our library and the tools that the L&D manager or the HR manager has, there they can explore this library and work also with folks on our staff to really curate the learning for their employees, for their learners, and then make it available and or assign it to them depending on which type of learning it is.
It sounds very similar to like maybe like how I don't know. I guess like a master class. Like you're creating your own content. Other people are creating content for you potentially, and then that goes in. And you said like the companies themselves, they get to create their own as well. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah. So companies can create their own, and they can leverage content from our library. And then back to your kind of the way you described the way the industry works, still very much that way today. And we so customers, some of our customers work directly with us, and we create a portal for them, a custom basically website that their learners can where their learners can access the content. But then increasingly, and especially here in the United States, a lot of our content is consumed through partnerships with the most popular LMSs and learning management systems and learning experience, LXPs, learning experience platforms. And so, kind of, however the employer wants to deliver that content to their employees, we support that.
Gotcha. So give us an idea of what makes Go One, I guess, a darling and a little. I like saying darling, but it has raised quite a bit of money, and of course, it's growing at a phenomenal clip. What do you think on your side, on the technical side? What makes it so? What makes it unique or uniquely positioned to accelerate this fast? Because to an outsider, possibly they're like, well, learning professional development's been around for a long time. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people will think that there's a lot of platforms that can host this stuff. What do you think has been maybe like a obviously can't give away secrets, but
Yeah,
we'd
yeah.
love to understand like what you think has helped Go One accelerate maybe faster than some of the others before it.
Yeah, I think there are a number of things. One, just general fragmentation. So to your point, there are a lot of players in the market, but they tend to be highly fragmented, and the average employer has to go out and find and then contract with and provision and make available content from many different sources. And so we make content and e-learning for many types of employees in many geographies available in a single place. And so the convenience of not having to go out and do all of that searching and contracting and integration is a big driver of this. I think if you think about other places where in marketplaces where aggregation has happened, and earlier in my career, I worked on the first version of the Amazon marketplace. That was a many buyers, many sellers kind of a story. I think, the corporate learning market is, hundreds of billions of dollars, somewhere, around 400, $500 billion globally. And so I think the second thing that I would say, but the providers landscape is very, very fragmented. And
Hmm.
so just standardizing an interface and an approach and a search capability across that, I think is one of the drivers. I think a second is, really the pandemic, in that still of that corporate learning market that I mentioned, less than half of it is online. And so, but it's the
Really?
fact, yeah, yeah. And
That's hard to believe, but that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's wild.
But it's the fastest growing portion, not surprisingly. And
Yeah.
so, that's been another, I would say, tailwind for this company. And I think, and it's a fundamental shift. I think, the following question comes, well, what happens after kind of, post pandemic? And I think we've seen, like, I don't think any of us believe that we're going to stop using Zoom, or that we're going to stop that. The return to work, the articles I'm seeing about return to work are all about how the workplace is going to be transformed into collaboration spaces. But,
Hmm.
floor after floor of cube farms, I don't think anybody's going to return to that. I know I'm not. And so, so I think, this fundamental concept of learning becoming something that happens online and, potentially in a distributed way is here to stay. I would say a third is that, and it's still really, really early, but there's more and more innovation happening, and the opportunity for us to get to a place where e-learning is not a kind of poor substitute facsimile of what would have been done in a classroom, but can actually, I fundamentally and truly believe, it's part of why I'm so excited to be here, leapfrog what's possible for many types of learning uh, in a classroom setting. Not to say that classroom settings aren't going to be great for a lot of things, but and again, I take a lot of inspiration from my time in other companies. And, I think back to Amazon in the late 90s when I joined, and a lot of the way we were thinking and trying to solve problems was we were looking at quote unquote bricks and mortar and saying, how do we be as good as? And then we got to a place of like,
Yeah.
oh, like the bricks can fly away, and we can be, we can really go beyond, and think about what's possible now in e-commerce, is for me at least. And I live on a small island, in near Seattle, but still a little bit separated. And the idea of having to get on a ferry and go into town to go to a mall just does not appeal to me at all. So that's what I think is possible, and where we're going, and I think is kind of probably the third thing that's going to make this future super bright.
When I'm listening to you talk about that, I agree wholeheartedly. I remember building these e-learning modules, and they were really just PowerPoints. Like it was basically like we were building tracked PowerPoints, and you could, you especially for a technical thing. Like I remember, let's say adding a requisition, something that every company does for a job recs. For those listening, that's what they formally call a job posting, a requisition, right? So you would have to teach people how to do this, and it would be like click in this field, click in this field, and every time you clicked in the right field, it would know that that's the field it was supposed to be clicked in. So then the slide would change, and it created like a a virtualized way of doing your job. So that was that experience back then. Do you like what are you thinking is going to, or what are you guys at Go1? I'm sure developing solutions to help make like the experiences more, I guess, immersive, interactive. Because like the way you were describing what you probably went through at Amazon was not going to be done through a slideshow, right? Because these things were just basically tricked out slideshows. Give us an idea of how technology is going to change the way we learn. Because for some of us who have been exposed to that, that's all we know.
Sure. Yeah. 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 I think there are a few areas that are really promising. One is virtual reality, augmented reality, kind of the XR space. And we recently announced an investment in a partnership with a company called Tailspin, which basically helps employees with soft skills and really creates this virtual environment where a manager can do things like practice giving difficult feedback or having hard conversations, potentially, a layoff or letting somebody go, and there's some artificial intelligence there that kind of is emotive and gives you this experience that, for those of us who've had to do it, unfortunately, can be pretty difficult and traumatic, frankly. And just go through it and build up that sort of experience base. It's early days on that, and we don't all have a VR headset sitting on our desk, but I think things like the Oculus Quest have brought the price point and the performance and technical abilities of those devices are coming up very rapidly with prices staying lower or coming down. So I think
Yeah.
that's an example. And then I start to think about, like augmented reality, and that's still, I think, a ways out in terms of actually being commercially viable. But, you start to imagine like an airline mechanic who's maintaining an engine, who's wearing glasses that allow them to see through, parts of the things that they're feeling on the other side of a valve to get to that screw that they need to. That's the kind of abilities that are coming. That's a little bit out there, but it's not so far out there that it's bleeding edge. I think
Hmm.
the other is really around leveraging machine learning and data science for personalization, and so getting to a place where it's less one size fits all. And I would say still, and I do believe it's very early days. The majority of e-learning is either that PowerPoint presentation, or I'd say increasingly, because the authoring is so much easier, it's video, where you sit and you
Yeah.
watch a video. Sometimes it's a recording of people in the classroom. So again, that facsimile, and followed by a multiple choice questionnaire or survey. And I think that we're starting to see people break out of that. So we also recently announced that Pluralsight is a partner on our platform. And for
Mm.
those folks who are not familiar with Pluralsight, Pluralsight is a learning resource for software developers, and it really takes you kind of through a journey of learning that's very hands-on and practical, and presents you with coding challenges and the ability to actually do things and learn from your mistakes and that kind of a thing. And so, whether it's personalization and recommendations, in the ways that we've seen, for example, in say streaming services for video, where based on things you've watched, you probably like that. There's real potential for that, and we've done some of that, and learners in our platform, based on what they've consumed prior, get recommended additional things, and that's also where some of the power of this library
That's
comes
awesome.
in that you're not just siloed with say Skillsoft. We can then also be making a recommendation based on what you've been looking at something from like Simon Says, which is Simon Says IT is another content provider of ours. But I think it's going to transcend also into not just the you like this, so you'll like that, but based on how you interacted with things here, we're going to modify the learning experience there. And that gets a little bit to kind of another way that I think that e-learning will stop at some point. We'll stop even calling it that. It's just this will be just how learning happens. It'll just be learning. But that the meeting the learner where they are or how they learn. So
Yeah.
some people, for some people, sitting in the classroom for 6, 8 hours a day is the best way for them to learn. They want to be completely in it and immersed and not distracted by anything else. And that, they've got sort of that ironclad attention span. Other people are much more like, I want to, 10 minutes a day, I want to consume something every day for a month. At the end of the day, the minutes may add up to the same, but it's just I want to hear a little bit and then I ruminate over it throughout the day and then I come back to it the next day. Some people are more auditory, some people are more visual. Some people are they really need to learn by doing. And so again, can we present the opportunity to engage with the content and do something versus sit back and absorb? There's so many dimensions to it, and I think also a lot of it is very asynchronous, meaning it's sort of it's one way.
Yeah.
How we get to a place where a live instructor. I mean, you give the example of masterclass, which is, they do a beautiful job and amazing minds are presenting things. But imagine that there's some way that you could be interacting with that Martin Scorsese or, whomever it is
Yeah.
in real time or not real time, but there's an actual interaction, as well as collaboration with other learners is something that's more nascent than really there, I would say, within the industry and certainly within the interfaces that we're supporting on platforms like ADP and Docebo and some of the other systems like Cornerstone or Workday, et cetera.
You know what you just described, the masterclass, right? So if I were to watch if I was watching How to Direct Movies kind of deal with Martin Scorsese, the next thing I would want to do is like probably some type of practical application. And you just kind of hinted at the future of e-learning where it could potentially get, which is it's contextual and it understands where I'm at, what my skill is. But I wonder, is it going to also recommend me? And I'm assuming yes, to like the next level. So like imagine, I'll use language because I think that's got a lot of corollary
Mm-hmm,
adjacencies.
mm-hmm.
Because imagine if I was taking Spanish and I was like learning and trying to teach myself Spanish, but then recognize like, hey, you're pretty good at this. You might actually do pretty good in. I'm just gonna make up one of the another Romance language. Like this is definitively close. Like you're pretty close to this.
Yeah, yeah.
Like oh, and you know what I mean? And it says, hey, would you like to take Portuguese, but not Portuguese 1? Maybe you can jump right into Portuguese 3 or something like that. It might be pretty crazy, and because one of the biggest challenges that we've seen in the past with e-learning is that the teachers that we know of today, they're really our guides. They
Mm-hmm,
help get us to like, hey, you already know piece A, you probably know piece B. I'm going to send you to piece C.
mm-hmm,
This is going to be the next step
mm-hmm,
in your learning journey.
mm-hmm.
E-learning doesn't often have that. It's like done in a very rigid, in the past, it was done in a very rigid, structured way where it was like, you have to complete 1 through 20. And when you complete 20, we'll unlock 21. And it was very linear. And you already said it, like people are now asynchronous. They do things on their own flow. Like, and of course, we already know everyone learns at a different rate. So there's going to be certain courses probably that they could skip. It sounds like that's where Go1 and yourself, that's where you're thinking like, hey, we could probably, if we can build that context into the system, we can help people jump further ahead to what they would be best suited for.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, today, again, because there's this wide variety of things for people to explore, there is the opportunity to find and discover things you wouldn't otherwise be able to, and kind of make those linkages or connections yourself. There's also, because of the way many or most of the courses are structured, they're broken down into modules or segments, and you're not required, unless it's again one of these things that's assigned and you must complete and has some
Yeah.
structure around it. But in general, if you want to jump to, you know, chapter 12 that describes, let's say you're doing a deep course on machine learning, and like to your point, I already covered, maybe there's a 20-hour course on machine learning, but the first 5 hours is stuff I'm already really practiced at and know. I can look through the course description and jump ahead. And then again, because it's video mostly, and a lot of our providers and content partners also provide transcripts, so you can kind of scan to see like where is it that the concept I'm looking for is. So I would say for the proactive learner, there's more and more flexibility to do exactly what you described. That's today. I'm again, part of what I'm excited about is, and some of the stuff that we're working on internally is how do we go to the next level of really using things like sort of topic modeling or other types of machine learning approaches to have a deeper understanding of what the content is about, and then relate it to things like skills and titles or roles, uh, and then to the individual who can maybe tell us more about themselves. And again, this is sort of early days for us, but I think to your point, the opportunity for us to more deeply understand concepts within the content, and then things about attributes of the learner, and match those up even before they've gone down a journey of learning. And then once they've actually done it and they've interacted and they've also given us feedback on, just some of the basic kinds of things we do in YouTube of, thumbs up, thumbs down on learning content to build up a profile on a learner. So the more they learn, the more we learn about them, and the more we can become like that great teacher we all had who took the time, in elementary school or all the way through, college, depending on where it happened, to get to know us and to say, hey, I see you struggling with this. I think that if you kind of look at it from this angle, or if you go read this, article or book, or I'm going to give you some assignments, or I'm going to sit with you and work with you when you get stuck to get to the next level. I think we will get there. It's piece by piece, but again, when
Yeah.
I think about the journey that I've seen, from the first time I got online, using a dial-up modem, pre-consumer web, in the late '80s, to where we are today, it's still early.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. The way you described it, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I can see that coming down the path. For yourself, I guess, what was the most exciting part about what Go1 was doing that made you say, "Hey, I want to join this"? Because for those of you that aren't following Barnaby on LinkedIn, the guy has a substantial background in technology, serving as CTO or CPO of multiple companies. Your advisors to multiple startups. You've been in video interviewing, you've been in building, you've been in payments, you've been, of course, you already mentioned Amazon. Like you've done a lot of cool stuff. What was it about Go1 that you said, "Hey, this is something that's really fascinating. I want to dive back in."
Yeah, yeah. So my last company, PayScale, was a great experience, and that's a company that helps companies figure out how much to pay their employees, and employees how much they should earn. And so it's also about, at its core, I think, optimizing outcomes for economic outcomes for folks. But I was there through.
I've used it many
Awesome,
times.
awesome. And I was very privileged to be there through massive growth from under 100 employees to over around 500, and getting to very big numbers. I don't think they disclose them publicly, but go from venture capital funded to a couple of different two private equity sales. Um, and so that got me deep into the kind of the human capital management category, and I decided
Hmm.
it was time to do something different after almost a decade there, and so started looking around. That company. I mean, part of the story of how I wound up at Go1 is through personal connection, which it's funny. I in my entire career, every job I've had, from like my first job as a dishwasher as a kid to now, has been through some personal connection. But so Madrona Ventures, which was an early investor in Amazon here in the Seattle area, was an investor in PayScale and is an investor in Go1. And so when I decided to leave PayScale, I let them know, and they were very generous in making introductions to a number of portfolio companies, including Go1, and that's how I met the team, and Andrew Barnes, our founder and CEO. Really, really visionary, inspiring guy, PhD in education, background in economics and business. And the more I learned about the mission and the vision to really help people, again, unlock positive potential. That sort of through a love of learning in particular, and education is a big part of my life. I really enjoyed school, and so I think I was wanting to continue doing something that I believe makes the world a better place and helps people. So that was kind of check, was one of the things I was looking for. Is there the opportunity for innovation and interesting application of technology and internet and web-based technologies? Absolutely. And again, because it's early, I think there's a lot of headroom for that. The use of video and the actual technology. My father was a filmmaker, and I grew up around, in and around the industry, and I that's another piece that's interesting to me. It has a marketplace dynamic element to it, which I think is also really, really interesting. There's just a lot of power in that, and value to be created. It's also the growth rate. We've been doubling for several years, and our plan is to continue to double in size from a kind of a revenue perspective into the foreseeable future. And again, the TAM, the total addressable market, is absolutely there for it. And so that being part of a a high growth organization is something that I've done and enjoyed. When I joined Amazon, it was hundreds of people in Seattle selling just books and music out of one warehouse, and grew to in the time I was there, just in the 7 years I was there, tens of thousands of employees and global distribution, et cetera, et cetera. Same pay scale, that same growth. So it's kind of the part of the ride that I enjoy, if you will. Um,
Yeah.
and I think the last one probably for me is also the global. There aren't a lot of companies that go global from day one, basically, or maybe not day one, but really early on. I mean, we have we're founded in Australia, but we have a development team in Vietnam. We have a development team that's actually distributed throughout Latin America. We have a growing development team in the United States. We're building out folks in Ireland, in Dublin, a mobile development team, more in UK and other parts of Europe. And so that global footprint. My undergraduate degree was international business. I spent half of my undergraduate time split between Spain and Mexico, and so the opportunity to kind of really work in a global organization that's distributed. And then I joined the company in the middle of the pandemic, and so I don't think I could have imagined working for and with a team that most of certainly initially my counterparts were in Australia. But through Zoom, and it's worked out. And I managed to recently visit Australia for the first time, which was fantastic. So I don't know. That's a little bit of what got me excited and why I'm here. And yeah, it's been fun.
The craziest thing about Go1 when I was doing the homework on it, and our team was doing the homework on it, was what you described there, which is like the crazy amount of growth. And it's interesting because the we've of course seen this on the consumer level before, where people are like, hey, I'm going to aggregate other people's content and we're going to put it through a central platform and people can just go get what they want to consume, right? Whether it's through music, movies, and so on. And then we also know that and I'm going to ask you this question. Those are expensive games because you have to pay all these people, right? You have to, people don't post, artists don't just put their content on Spotify for free. They want money back, right? And so Blinkist, you named all these companies, Coursera, Skillshare, like there's a lot of companies producing content and putting it on Go1. I mean, I'm assuming that's quite expensive. So you have to also make sure they're getting a lot of consumers. There's plenty of consumers filling in on the other side. Was when you started, were all these companies already jumping on board? Like, hey, this is going to be a great thing. Let's centrally aggregate all of our content. Or was there still a lot of friction and resistance where you were helping to integrate some of the technologies to say, hey, this is going to be easy, frictionless. You don't have to do too much. Give us an idea of what stage of like the marketplace was at before you joined.
Yeah, listen, I would say the commercial team at Go1 has done a fantastic job of both sides of the marketplace. Because again, it's a chicken and egg kind of a problem. And
Yeah,
when I joined, I would say the product market fit and the ability to get to scale with both sides had been proven out. There definitely were
gotcha.
some challenges to just on the integration side, and we haven't solved them all because there's a super long tail and different technologies and approaches of authoring, hosting, et cetera, et cetera, and also trying to do that on a global not trying, doing that at a global scale presents some pretty unique
Yeah,
challenges. So yeah, that was an initial area of focus was moving from a lot of custom integrations to building out our APIs and the documentation of those APIs and essentially making it so that partners could either integrate directly themselves or a growing kind of ecosystem of systems integrators, consultants could help make those connections if that individual wasn't able to do that. We're working right now actually or we have and we've released and are continuing to build out a new service we're calling Connect, which is really aimed at um, content creators of any kind, anywhere, and
mm,
enabling them with a platform. So you can imagine, kind of like, say, a large tech company that has a lot of content that they want people who are developers using their technology or build on their platform. Think of the large cloud platforms, et cetera. there's a lot of learning that has to happen to be able to actually leverage those
Oh
things.
yeah.
And so whether it's a company like that or maybe say a large consulting firm that has a lot of intellectual property and content that gets created, um, all the way to smaller players like imagine a best-selling business book author who also is on the speaking circuit. How do they make that available and put that into a library like ours that then also has distribution? So I mean, you're absolutely right. Like getting all of that content and having a healthy content partner ecosystem is super important. It's something that we have invested a lot in and continue to invest in, and we'll continue to um, help them and provide analytics and I think we have a vision of as sitting in the middle of also helping with better understanding of what's needed in the marketplace, where's the demand, where are the gaps, but yeah, a big part of the work over the last year that I've been here is just in automating integrations, both for people who create content to be able to get that into our platform, but then also the connections out to our partners on the distribution side.
Yeah. And then you're familiar with marketplaces, so then you also have to solve this. I'm curious how you guys are approaching this, right? Because rank, relevance, and effectiveness are probably, especially since you guys are in a B2B or selling to businesses mostly, it's got to be all three, right? It's got to be relevant to what I'm looking for. It's got to be helps me teach the skill better than everyone else. In the past, there are companies where marketplaces were just regulated by the creators or I guess the
Mm-hmm.
consumers, right? Like on Amazon, I get to rank soap, and the soap with the best ranking can come to the top. But I'm assuming this is a little bit different because like there's if I'm a company, there's like almost a level of
Mm-hmm.
effectiveness I
Mm-hmm.
would want more. Meaning I would like if you're better at teaching my workers a skill, I would want them to find your course more than someone else's. Like I don't want entertainers like I joke with other guests, but like personal finance has become this like realm of like who's more
Mm-hmm.
creative, not who's actually
Yeah,
better
yeah.
at it, right? Like if you go on YouTube and watch, don't ever watch one Grant Cardone video because once you see one, you will see nonstop somebody trying to tell you they can help you 10x your money. And it's like, these guys are good content creators, but I don't know if they're actually good at the skill that I actually want to know how to do.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? How do you prevent that from happening?
I think it's it'll become a hard problem. I don't think it is now because you're familiar with the industry. At this point, it's still pretty utilitarian, right? Like the entertainment side of it
Yeah.
is not there yet. And I was just at an offsite with the rest of the exec team in Brisbane in Australia, and we were talking about exactly this. Like, how do we embrace that? How do we go to the level of, because again, it's sort of this this the similar thing. I mean, one of the questions we like to ask people to frame kind of the opportunity is, when was the last time you willingly consumed a piece of e-learning as part of your job, on something, you know in one of these systems, right? Like the answer ranges from,
Yeah. It's probably,
yeah. What's your answer?
I would say it's less frequent than when I want to learn skills, me going to YouTube to find
Totally.
it. You know what I mean? Like I've already defaulted to a more
Exactly.
entertaining way to
Right. Yeah.
learn
And
the
so,
skill.
so the following question is: so most people say like weeks, months, never. The willing part, right? And then but when was the last time you learned something online? And you're like, oh, this morning, right? Like, because we're all constantly learning. Whether it's listen
Yeah.
podcasts,
Yeah.
witness the explosion of podcasts, this
Yep.
medium, through to audiobooks or just reading something on my Kindle or whatever it is. And so I think we're trying to close the gap from where the industry is today to that place where it really is something that both meets people's needs and addresses the skills gap and other massive changes in the marketplace, but is also truly enjoyable and entertaining. And so yeah, there's still a big gap there. I think as an industry, we're still kind of in the base layer or the foundational side of things, and that is part of our vision. But I think the other thing I would add is that the need for this is rapidly expanding based on just how work has changed.
Yeah.
And people talk a lot about the Great Resignation, but if you look at the actual employment numbers, people are still working. It's more of a great shuffle,
Yeah.
or people changing jobs, those kinds of things. And I, as someone who enjoys reading about history, I kind of think about, if you think about the Industrial Revolution, which basically automated away manual work, right? Um, the steam shovel versus John Henry, and and then now we've had, with the kind of the information revolution, and the automation away of knowledge work, of thought. And it ranges from, you go to a McDonald's now that might have employed 8 people or 10 people, now employs 2 people, because their machines, taking your order and filling drinks and doing all those things at one end of the
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah.
To, there's if you think about like natural language generation and GPT-3, and kind of what's possible there, things that lawyers, content that lawyers would have produced in the oil and gas industry or finance industry, is literally being automated out of data. Um, and so what's left is kind of things that really require human intellect and creativity. And but how you match up tasks, work, with the right human, and then also how you enable that human to do that work, is an increasing challenge. And and
Yeah.
so I think that's at the crux of where so much of the opportunity for e-learning to help lives.
Yeah. And I see that we see that with a lot of our guests talking about how their workforce pretty much needs to get upskilled. You already named Amazon, but like there was an article I remember, it was less than 12 months ago where it came out where they're like, hey, listen, everyone who wants to get upskilled, the door is open right now. Like we have a dearth, we have a whole, like you said, these jobs today, yeah, we figured out how to automate them. But this next wave of things that we want to do, we still don't have people to do that. But to do this thing, you got to upskill yourself. And so I see e-learning having a significant greater role in the requirements needed to upskill, because a company is going to want to know that you're qualified to do it. I mean, that frankly, like they're not going to, you know what I mean? It doesn't help them for you to just vote with your hand and say, hey, I upskilled myself. They're going to want to know that practically you've done it and that you have proven exercises that demonstrate you have these skills. And it's going to be it's like you said, it's going to be a monumental shift over the next,
Yeah,
let's say,
yeah. And I
decade.
think the increments are also just going to continue to shrink. To the point you said, like, we have people who know how,
Yeah.
we know how to do this, and we have people to do it. Well, anytime I hear 10 people are doing the same thing, I think, oh, we should automate that. I don't care what it is. Right. And then those 10 people are going to get displaced into the next thing, but like helping them figure out what that is, helping the employer figure out sort of how to skill them for it. Uh,
Yeah.
and just, and it's, the going off for a year to learn something, or 5 years, or whatever it is just not, it's not the way things are going to happen anymore. It's constant.
Yeah, I can tell you. I could tell you my wife works in international tax at one of the big tech companies, and it used to be a 50-person division. It's now a
Wow.
5-person division,
Wow.
which is crazy. But like that's the amount of
Yeah,
technology has helped automation, like, flowing data points into ledgers. So like really they're, they of course they have to be able to spot the problems, but this trend
absolutely.
won't stop. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like just as you just said. Barnaby, thanks for joining us today on IT Visionaries. It was awesome having you. Thanks for sharing why and how Go1 is growing so fast. It is, when we were doing our research in the very beginning of the show, it was puzzling to us. Like, how can e-learning be growing that fast? Because we all came from a place where e-learning, what it used to
Mhm.
be, you know what I mean? Like it was not a sexy place
It
to
is
be.
now.
So it was awesome hearing some of your insights. But before you go, it is time for the lightning round. The lightning round is brought to us by Salesforce Platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience. Barnaby, this is where we ask you questions outside of the realm of work so our audience can get to know you a
Ready.
little better. You ready? You've had a tremendous tech career, but you also kind of just gave a hint that you live very far away from everybody in a very natural, pristine place. How far away from downtown Seattle are you actually? Because you said you live on
Yeah,
an
yeah. So
island.
I live on Bainbridge Island. Sometimes I like to joke that I was born on a small island about the same size and shape on the East Coast, known as Manhattan. Um, and it is, and that's true. So Seattle's only about 7 miles away. It's a 35-minute ferry ride, but with the pandemic, et cetera, it's been an awesome place to just kind of be and be. There are only about 25,000 residents on the island, and it's a lot of parks and access to water and wildlife.
So are you a nature person? Do you like being out in nature, or are you one of the people that just likes taking in nature and seeing it?
No, I love to get out to hike. My wife and I go out for long walks, and I think they call it forest bathing in some more woke circles. But yeah, it's and we love to be out on the water. Love to go sailing. Love to in the water, under the water, on the water.
Do you actively think about work while doing things in nature, or do like ideas just randomly pop in your head?
It's a mixture. Sometimes it's an escape, right? And other times I find that it is just this like open, beautiful place. Being in the Pacific Northwest, we have incredible greenery and moss and big trees, and but just getting away from the monitor and getting away from kind of the rigid structure of technology into the natural sort of complexity but beauty of nature. Sometimes I think can be a good foil for solving a problem. And so sometimes I'm actively, as I'm walking, and thinking like, how do I solve that problem? And the shape of a tree might actually inspire something. And other times I'm trying to get away from it, and then it still comes to me. But yeah.
We've recognized this about many of our guests in IT Visionaries, is that many of our guests are builders of some sort. They build and create on their own, whether it's in code or physically, or they garden or do something like that. What are some of your hobbies that involve creation, building outside of code?
Yeah. So food and cooking are also a really big part of my life. I've done it sort of in professional capacities or in related ways, but I like to say that cooking is the only perfect art form because it's the only art form that involves all the human senses. Obviously taste, sight, the sound of crunch, the sound of something, obviously smell, and so and it's the ability to create is endless, and there's great tradition, but then there's also innovation. So I love cooking. I love feeding people. I love experimenting with food.
What's your killer dish then? If you said, "Hey, Barnaby, I need you to impress somebody," what are you making?
So there are a few things. I make a Caesar salad that most people say is the best they've ever had. I make same with the coleslaw that I make. That I actually learned when I was working at a resort in the Catskills as a kid. But I've also really gotten into kind of some more advanced things like sous vide, which is cooking in a high humidity environment at a very precise temperature for a very long time. And so things like sous vide leg of lamb is something I've also made for people who've said this is by far the best lamb I've ever had. I don't know, but when people ask me what's your favorite food, I always say something I've never tried because I always love trying new things. So.
All right. So then how does that mix? Because you live on an island with 25,000 people. So I know there's not tons of restaurants next to you. Right.
Yeah. So we do a lot of cooking, both, in my family. My wife and I have an 11-year-old daughter who also loves to cook. We actually live on the water, and have an oyster garden. So we're have our own oysters.
Cool.
But there are actually, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 wineries on the island. There's a great brewery. There's a distillery.
Oh, wow.
There's a great farmer's market. And the Pacific Northwest is just an amazingly diverse place when it comes to food, and of all kinds, whether it's seafood, meats. Washington wine is fantastic, and again, everything's accessible now. I can order something and have it here, tomorrow or in a few days from of kind of any kind of thing. The same thing that allows me to work remotely with people from the other side of the world allows me to also cook amazing things that come, from the rest of the world. But I do have a real bias toward things that are local.
Well, if you ever get a chance to, maybe you've already been. My friend owns a restaurant out in Seattle. It's called Homer, and he owns the place next to it called Milk Drunk, which only does like fried chicken sandwiches and ice cream. And he likes to source all his ingredients locally. So I got to plug my buddy, Chef Logan Cox. Homer, Milk Drunk. If you haven't been, give him a shout. I'll help set up
That'd be awesome.
a cool tasting or something. But Barnaby, Barnaby, it was awesome having you on IT Visionaries. Thanks for sharing all the stuff that you shared, and thanks for giving us a window into the world outside of developing one of the fastest growing e-learning platforms out there. It was great having you on the show.
Thanks, a real pleasure. I really enjoyed it.